the topic, banking for the digital age, is quite an important topic in today's climate. Because actually we see things, at least for the last 3 years to the next 5 years, being as an inflection point on how things are getting done. The key points or the key takeaways from this talk will be about the evolution of digitalization in banks and on knowing your customer. What we thought about knowing our customer 20 years ago to what we think about knowing our customer now are very different, and I'll explain that. And the importance of knowing your customer. And the other thing I wanted to talk about is how we see the way forward, or what is next when we look at banking or digital banking. In a traditional banking, when you think of traditional banking, that is, let us say about 10 years ago and so on, we actually had a relationship with our banker. To the point where the banker would come to your social functions, or you went to their social functions. The banker knew exactly what your life was like, what your expectations are in terms of the financial services that you may need, and they were there even to provide advice. Today, however, things are much faster. If you look at digital banking today, everything is almost virtual. I do not, for example, remember in the US the last time I went to my bank. I really don't know who my banker is. I would not be able to identify them if I saw them. On the other hand, just to give you an example, for my parents in India, their banker who retired some time ago still goes to visit them, still invites them for their marriage functions and things like that. So the relationship is very different. Today, however, today when we talk about know your customer, all we are worried about is the person legitimate? Do they have the required documents? That is what we are looking at. Previously, when you looked at know your customer, it was about really knowing your customer. One of the things I think, because of digitalization, that we are clearly missing out is do we actually know who we are dealing with? And a lot of it has to do with the fact that almost everything is digital now. So when we look at digitalization, we feel, or our intent or feeling is that digitalization is, you have to use the technology where it provides value-added service. If it does not provide value-added service, then it shouldn't be implemented just because technology is out there. For me, there are three things. One is affordability, availability, and the trust. One of the things that banks have, inherently any bank has, is trust. Everybody trusts a bank. As opposed to anything else, you always trust your bank. So in affordability or availability, you really want the thing to be available for you whenever, wherever, however. Nowadays, with digital devices, that is very easy and it is available. However, when it comes to affordability, just because technology is there, it is not available for everybody. For instance, if I need a smartphone to access my bank account, that is not affordable for everybody. It is affordable for people in cities, but it is not affordable for everybody. In terms of trust, today, yes, I trust my bank to have my data. But do I really know where my data is? For instance, when I do a particular transaction at a merchant, my data does go to the bank, but it also goes to some place with the merchant. How secure is that? So that trust needs to be built in whenever you're thinking about digital banking or digitalization. I wanted to give an example. Nowadays, whenever you pay any fees or things like that, you do it via a portal. The idea there is that you can do it anytime, that it is secure, and that the other thing is that it is fast to use. The intent is that. However, in practicality, it depends on where you are. The way you would apply for fees, whether it is in an urban area or in a rural area, are two completely very different things. In an urban area, for example, it is completely accessible because almost everybody has access to internet and so on and so forth. It is easily affordable, and there is a certain amount of trust. when you think about using online systems and so on. The same is not true in rural area. Accessibility is not that easy. They may or may not have networks available, so affordable. So a lot of times in rural areas, and this we have seen globally, whether it's in Africa, Philippines, you name it, or in Europe, in rural areas, they will have to go to certain centers, and then the centers charge them for something to use the services, because everybody has to make a living. And trust. The trust is in there. I have talked to a lot of people where they will say that, yes, I like your ideas, or I like electronic transformation, but I still believe in cash. So the trust has to be built. So evolution in banking, most of you are in banking, so you actually know that right now, for example, we are looking at artificial intelligence and then using systems like open banking and so on. And this has transformed in the last 20 to 25 years, where initially we had ATMs and things like that. If I look at how the banks are used today, or how banking, majority of the banking happens either via the internet or mobiles. That is 75% of it happens that way, and 15% only happens in branches. So, however, when you're going for new products, most of the new products, globally, people come into the branch to do it. So when we look at satisfaction levels, the overall satisfaction level of a person's experience in financial services, we find that even though only 15% of the time a person is going into a branch, their experience or satisfaction level is much higher depending upon their experience in a branch or their experience with the call center, as opposed to what is happening in a mobile or internet. The reason for this is that people typically go to branches when they have an issue or a problem, or they call a call center when there is an issue or a problem, or where they want to do something new. Okay? So we have to keep this very much in mind. However, globally, the trend is that the branches are going away. That is, I think from 2016 to now, 20% of the branches globally have been closed. Okay? But this slide shows something different for us. So today, in knowing your customer, it is not enough that, for example, that you know, okay, that students are my customer segment. What is important is that even the type of student is important. That is the student going to let us say, a government college, or are they going to a private college? Does the student come from a wealthy background or a rural background? And the solution that you provide to them should be specifically tailored to them. So that is essentially what we are talking about, is lifestyle solutions. So when you start off, when somebody is a baby, you start with, let us say, an educational account. The same person, when they get slightly older, you may give them a card for, let us say, their spending accounts, which has certain limits and so on. And as they become adults, you continue the process. So now what you're doing is that the individual is, so the bank is now catering to that particular individual throughout their life cycle. The same thing holds for merchants. That is, it's not enough. I don't know how to go back. It is not enough that we just provide POS solutions for merchants. For a merchant, for example, I should be able to provide a small payroll solution, a small vendor management solution, all of this. This is when it becomes valuable to the merchant. This is how the banking is actually transforming itself, where a bank, more than providing just the immediate financial needs, is moving more and more towards a service-oriented application. I'm going to move through the slides as I'm running out of time. Same thing with corporations. When a bank provides solutions to corporations, it is not enough that we just provide them a payroll solution or thing. We also have to be able to provide them solutions for their purchasing department, for their travel cards, and insurance, all of these things. So what we are clearly talking about is that today, when we look at digitalization, there are certain inconveniences with it, because it is not. It is almost as if one solution fits everybody, which is not true. It needs to be customized for every particular individual. I will give you an example. To this day, my bank sends me things about mortgages to get housing loans. But at my age and where I am in my life, they know that I already own a house. So I'm not going to go for it. So it's a waste. So what has happened now is any email from my bank, I put it into the junk folder. I just don't read it because it doesn't cater specifically to my needs as an individual, and that is really what I'm looking for. So what you really need is a single platform which can provide you an infinite solution. Essentially, every bank has the back office systems like the slide shows, and then you should be able to, for example, next if you want to do open banking, it should be able to handle it. If you want to use chat bots, the same platform should be able to handle it instead of us continuously thinking that we have to keep changing the platforms. Because whenever you change platforms, it is very expensive. So whatever the existing platform is, you have to be building up on it. So the points I wanted to make, well, the first one is that banking is very personal. That is, everything has to be, so you have to know your customer well. It has to be fully available and available at any given time or place. And then all your transactions now anyway are real-time transactions. And the next one is about the fact that branches. You have to have service centers. We cannot completely move away from service centers not being there. And the security of the data is very important. And the next piece is the monetization of the data. We have to be very careful about how the data is being used and who is using it. And in terms of service centers, our vision is the following. A service center, in my opinion, is something where I can go do all my banking, financial and non-financial. I can, if I wish to, go book my airline ticket, go get my insurance, and things like that. And for me, there are no longer bank branches, but there are service centers where I can go access for any bank. This is what the world trend is moving towards. I will give you an example. Recently, when I gave a talk in Philippines, I went and visited a bank where that bank has a similar center, where not in that center, they actually allow their customers to come and sell their goods, like handicrafts and so on. That is, they have space set aside in the branch where they also do that. That means it's not just a bank, it actually provides other services to the community, so people have a tendency to come more and use it. So in our vision, or actually the trend that we are seeing more and more towards, is these service centers, but they have to be assisted. There has to be somebody there. I don't know, and I am quite tech savvy, but still a lot of times I am stumped when I use apps and so on and so forth, and the assistance is not there. If the assistance was also there, that is where we see the benefit. So it is not enough to just use technology for technology's sake. The technology combined with the human interaction is where we see digital transformation being most effective. I will give you a good example. Yesterday when I landed in your airport in San Jose, previously whenever I came to Costa Rica, I had to fill out a lot of forms in the plane. Half the time, because I'm old, I can't read the form. The type is too small, so I will write something else and so on and so forth. It's a laborious process. Now, when you get into San Jose Airport, it literally takes you 5 minutes. There is no paperwork. That, to me, is a perfect example of digital transformation. That is what it should look like. A banking experience should be like that. It should be frictionless. I will give you another quick example. Whenever I am in San Jose, I stay in the same hotel. The reason I stay in the same hotel is because of the stickiness that hotel has created. The stickiness comes about because as soon as I get to the hotel, they greet me by my name. They tell me, oh, you were here 4 months ago. How have you been? And things like that. They will say, oh, you like a wake-up call at such and such a time. We will arrange for that. And so they have created the stickiness by knowing their customer on an individual basis. So now what happens is that irrespective of what else is there, I always only stay at that hotel. So they've got a loyal customer for them for life. That is what I am talking about when I'm talking about digital transformation. And some of this can really be applied to banks. This is my talk. I think, gracias and pura vida.